Hello, everybody. Welcome back. My friends, I am so thrilled and happy to bring you today's podcast guest. This is, not only is she my friend, but she is a pediatrician turned brilliant coach and the host of Your Favorite You podcast. I am so thrilled to welcome her today, Melissa Parsons. Welcome, welcome.
Thank you, Priyanka. It is a joy to be here, and I'm so happy that we're friends, and I'm so happy that we're going to have this conversation. I really think that other amazing women are going to benefit so much from hearing what we have to say. And I
Oh,
have no
as
idea what we're going to say. So,
we're just going to go where this goes. Like before we hit record for anyone that's listening right now, I'm like, we're just going to go wherever the conversation goes. But I gave a little brief snippet at the start of today's podcast episode. But Melissa, tell us all about you and how you went from being, I think of it as a kind of like a rock star pediatrician. And I say this because I see your Facebook feed and your
yeah,
patients literally love you and they follow you to this day, even though you're not
yeah.
practicing as a pediatrician anymore. So I'm calling you a rock star pediatrician turned coach extraordinaire because that's also what you do. So tell us a little bit about you and how you went from being a pediatrician to a coach and then
Yeah.
also a former client of mine. So we're going to talk about that too. Let's go.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah.
Okay, so I had wanted to be a pediatrician since I was 9 years old. I had this dream. I loved my pediatrician. His name was Dick Moore. He was amazing. He was a solo practitioner, like took all his own call, like talk about a rock star. I loved his office. Like he went to Yale. He had his diploma up on the wall, and like I loved going to see him, and I just loved everything about it. So I knew that I wanted to be in science. I didn't know. And to be really honest, when I was in I want to say it was fourth grade, so like 9 years old, we had to do a project, and I am a recovering Catholic and went to Catholic school for 12 years. And I said to the nun, my teacher at the time, um, I'm trying to decide between being an astronaut and being a doctor. And she said, "Oh, Melissa, you're spacey enough. Why don't you stay here on Earth and help people?"
Oh my God. First of all, at the age of 9, I mean,
Yes. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
oh my
Trauma,
gosh.
trauma,
Oh my
trauma.
gosh. Yeah. So you decided to stay on Earth. Is that what it
Yeah. I
was?
decided
Like,
to stay on Earth. Yeah.
oh my gosh. Wow.
Um, so that's kind of the backstory on that. But anyway,
Yeah.
you know, worked hard. Um,
Yeah.
wasn't I mean, I've always been smart. I will toot my own horn. Like I've always been smart, but
Oh, that's
I
one thing you're
was
all going to get on this episode. We are going to be tooting our own horns a lot. And for those of you, I'm just giving you a sneak peek towards the end of the episode. That is what Melissa helps women do. And I think it's so
yeah.
important what you're doing in the world. So, anyways,
Yeah.
okay, go toot your own
Yes.
horn. Tell us.
So yeah, I mean, I've always been smart,
Yeah.
and but I had to work. I wasn't a person who didn't have to study and that type of thing. So I did a lot of work to get into medical school. I cried when the postmaster came and gave me my acceptance to medical college. And I went to med school, went to residency. I finished in 2002 in peds. And I was in practice. I started out in urgent care. I learned so much. And I had a lot of people asking me in urgent care, like, do you have your own practice? Do you have your own practice? And then when my kids were older and I actually wanted to be at home in the evenings and afternoons and on weekends and that type of thing, I joined my private practice, Emerald Pediatrics, in 2008. And I practiced there, and I had, I mean, a faithful fan base. There
I
were
mean, yeah, you
definitely,
do. Even to this day, come on. Like they are
yeah.
following you, your fan base, because
Hmm.
there's something to fan over, which we're going to talk about. So, like, yeah, so you had a following as a
Yeah.
pediatrician. I'm not even surprised.
And honestly, the best thing about my job right now is the amount of moms from my practice who have come to be my clients.
Oh,
And they're like, basically, move over, kids. It's my turn now. Like they were
oh yeah,
sad that I was leaving, because they wanted me to continue to be their pediatrician, but they were big cheerleaders of mine when I did leave, and were,
yeah,
inspired by me having
yeah.
a new dream at 47 years old and
Right.
deciding to pursue that. So yeah, I came to coaching in 2018. I joined Katrina Ubell's Weight Loss for Doctors Only and worked with her for 6 months. And then at the end of that, I realized that I needed to work on my marriage with my husband, John, who is also a total rock star pulmonary critical care doc. And I worked with Maggie Reyes for 6 months. And Maggie was the one who said to me, you know, Melissa, your self coaching is so powerful. And, you know, she said something like better than coaching that I see of coaches that have been in the industry for years and years. And she
Mm,
pointed out that I had been coaching for 22 years as a pediatrician, but I just didn't call
right.
it that.
Right.
Um, and didn't realize it. So she was the one who was like, you should consider becoming a coach.
I had
And
no idea that I had no idea that
yeah.
she did that. Maggie is
Hmm.
amazing. And thank you, Maggie,
Yeah.
for bringing Melissa into the coaching industry. But like, I had
Yeah.
no idea that that's how you became a coach.
Yeah. Maggie
Okay.
was like,
Yeah.
you should consider it.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I did for about six
Yeah.
months. And I was
Okay.
inspired by Katrina. Obviously,
Of
she's a fellow
course.
pediatrician turned coach. And,
Of course.
I would be lying to say that I didn't think, oh, like this could be possible for me. And I think
Right.
that like the beauty of coaching is it takes those of us who have a negativity bias, which is spoiler alert, every human who lives on the planet.
That's right. That's right. I'm raising my hand right here. Like, yep. Hello.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
it opens us up to possibility that we
Yeah.
never saw for ourselves.
Right.
So beautiful to like live in possibility instead of living in fear and probability. And this might never happen for me.
Mm,
So I think that's one of the most powerful lessons that I learned really early with coaching was,
yeah.
oh, I have so much choice that I never really
Right.
realized. And then just opening up to all of that possibility that choice allows. So,
Yeah. Like when you think about that time, because you were saying it, you were 47 when
mhm,
you made this decision, which is huge. And I see so many women be thinking that, oh, like so much time, too much time has passed for them to make a
mhm.
change. Like they kind of get stuck
Yeah.
in that. And can you speak a little bit about like that moment? It might have been multiple moments, maybe that culminated to you deciding, but we have this negativity bias and we're feeling the
Mhm,
doubt and uncertainty and like should I've worked so hard to create a practice
mhm,
and I have a fan base. Can you speak like a
mhm.
little bit about how did you bridge that gap for yourself where you had that but yet you were like there is possibility here?
Yeah. Okay, so it's all credit to coaching and to me being coachable. Like I'm going to take fucking credit for me being
Yeah.
coachable because
Oh
there are
yeah,
plenty of
yeah.
people who are not coachable and who could have gotten the same coaching and not taken it the way that I
Absolutely.
did.
Yeah.
So again, Maggie said, like, let's write down all the beliefs that you have about yourself as a pediatrician.
Hmm.
And you can also have all of those beliefs about yourself as a coach, as a mom, as a
Mm-hmm.
wife, as a friend, as a human, like,
Hmm.
in the place where I had done a lot of work to establish myself and, it was a huge part of my identity. She was like, we can just take that identity that you have as a pediatrician and put it on you as a coach. And any thought that you think about yourself as a pediatrician, you can also think about yourself as a coach. So,
Yeah.
I
What
mean,
do you
and
think it
I've
was
done
that
that.
like made you coachable? Because I think you're right. You know,
Mhm.
somebody can get the same information and we can
Mhm.
take so many different approaches to it and get such different results. I think that the trouble is we
Mhm.
sometimes use that against us. Like, oh, look at
Mhm.
that person succeeding and look at me
Right.
not succeeding. I kind of see it being
Yeah.
used as a weapon. You're talking about using it as a tool. How do
Yeah.
you think, like, if somebody's listening and they're like, you know what, I really want to utilize, I have these resources in front of me and I want to use it. How does
Mhm.
somebody be coachable in their own life?
I think it has to do with knowing and figuring out, like, how can I be there for myself if it doesn't work out the way that I think it might? If I
Yeah.
fail,
Right.
if I at first don't succeed. Like, do I try it
Yeah.
again? Or do I say this wasn't actually for me? So I think
Right.
I have gotten very good at figuring out how to be with myself, and like myself and catch myself like being judgmental, catch myself being negative, like, oh,
Mhm.
wait, I forget that's not necessary. Like, that's the
Right.
part I can skip and
Right.
just
Like it still comes
go,
up even as a coach who's like a
oh,
seasoned
yes.
and very well experienced coach. Like we still have negativity biases even now.
Yes.
But
Oh,
what
for
you're talking
sure.
about is like what there's a cost to keeping that. And I wonder
Hmm.
whether being coachable is almost like we don't want that anymore. It's like
Yeah.
we have choice here.
Yeah. And it's a price that
Mm.
I'm not willing to pay anymore.
Right.
Right. So
Yeah.
I think for me, what I recognized was that I had done so many things to, and I loved my job as a pediatrician, but I had done so
Right.
many things to tolerate it.
Hmm.
And I had done so many things to tolerate my relationships. And I was like, oh no, like, I don't want to live a tolerable life anymore.
That's
Like,
right.
I want to live
Yeah.
an amazing life and I want to do everything that I can.
Yeah.
And I think the other thing that really helped me and that I had never done prior to coaching was using my future self to inform my present.
Mm. Can you tell us what that, because I think for those of us that are like audience that's listening, they don't understand what a future self is.
Yeah.
So talk a
Yeah.
little bit
Yeah.
about
Yeah.
what that is so that we can kind of get into it.
So for me, it is like myself in 2017. If you would have told me in December of 2022 that I would be sitting here on a podcast with a former OBGYN turned life coach, we're both amazing coaches in our own right, you know, recording this podcast, I would have been like, I have no idea
Mhm.
what you're talking about. Like, that is not available to me. That does not exist. Right. So when I think about myself 4 years from now, now that I know that I have this future self available to me, I ask her, like, what would I do if I knew that everything was going to turn out okay?
Yeah.
And I get to define that, right?
Yeah.
Um, like, what is the next step? Which feelings do I want to feel as I live the next 4 years? Which ones am I willing to feel as
Right.
I go through the next 4 years? Because,
Yeah.
there's going to be, I think for me, one of the feelings that I don't love feeling, and this is because I'm me, is uncertainty.
Oh
Like,
yeah.
I want to know all the steps that are laid out in front of me. And I
Yeah.
think that that's one of the things that made becoming a doctor easy for me. Like,
Absolutely.
once I got into med school and like hugged the postmaster, like, the steps were all kind of laid
Yeah.
out and there
Yeah.
was very little risk.
That's right.
Right. In my job now, like, the steps are not all laid out. I get to pick.
Right.
And like, the only risk in my estimation is how I'm going to treat myself if something doesn't work out.
Absolutely.
And I think knowing that is so fucking powerful
Yeah.
because I know that my future self is even kinder to me than I am now.
Yeah.
She's even less judgmental. She's
Mm.
learned so much. She's taken steps that worked fabulously and she's taken steps that didn't work at all. And like, knowing, like, I'm going to be talking in metaphor, like knowing that I'm like going through the forest with this flashlight, I can only see a couple steps ahead of me, and knowing, oh no, like, I'm laying down the breadcrumbs as I go so that if I get to a spot where I'm like, I don't like this isn't what I thought it was going to be, I can like go back to the
That's right.
point in the forest where the road forked and choose a different path. Like,
That's right.
so I
Yeah.
don't
I
know. I'm
also
kind of
wonder
talking in
because like
circles.
no, but I think what you're saying is so important because uncertainty has been a big one for me too. It was
Oh, yeah.
uncertainty, and I think a lot of what it was for me was inadequacy. That's
Mhm.
another emotion that I used to feel a lot of. And I think being a physician, and again, like just like you, I mean, being an OBGYN, I didn't leave practicing being an OBGYN because I hated it or was burnt out, though I know a lot of physicians are leaving because of that reason. I truly
Mhm.
loved my practice and my patients. And
Mhm.
it's easy when you're in a job that you love, like being a physician, to cover over that. You never,
Mhm.
especially if you're good at what you do, let's talk about
Mhm.
tooting our own horns. Like if you're
Yeah.
good at being a physician or in your job, it's easy to mask uncertainty and inadequacy and doubt because you're like, look at you rocking out as this
Mhm.
awesome pediatrician with this fan base. And
Mhm.
all of a sudden, when you decide to level up the goal,
Mhm.
we don't want to live a tolerable life. For me, it was that moment. I think I've told you before where I was driving to work, 200 pounds, and I have this good on life paper, like,
Mhm.
these kids and in a practice. And I'm like, why am I so frustrated? But
Mhm.
I also felt at that moment, like I've worked too hard to live, in your words, like just an okay life. Like it's good,
Mhm.
it's fine, but like it could be so much better. I believe that to be
Mhm.
true. And
Mhm.
there was uncertainty there because I
Mm.
didn't have like any knowing what's on the other side. But that was where it all come up. But I think you and I would probably both say that coaching has allowed us to bridge that gap and
Yeah.
knowing that even if it's uncertain, we are safe in that
Mhm.
uncertainty. I think your breadcrumbs kind of made me, when I was imagining you like don't like where you are and now you can just come back and take a
Mhm.
different part of the fork, you're safe
Mhm.
the whole time.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
Uncertainty is
so
only like, oh,
good.
there's something that's going to like harm us. That's the only
Mhm.
reason uncertainty is really a problem, right? If like
Right.
uncertainty and we're going to get eaten alive at the end of that
Yeah,
road.
or fall into some abyss, like, that we can't get
Yeah.
out of, right?
And it's always how we talk to ourselves. I think what you're speaking to is so important because what is that bear at the end of the
Mhm.
road? It's
Mhm.
always how we're going to talk to ourselves,
Mhm.
which is so
Yeah.
important, right? Because that's
Yeah,
the
yeah,
optional
yeah.
part.
Right, right, right. And I think I kinda wanna speak to, like, a lot of people when I was leaving pediatrics didn't understand because I did like my job, and
Right.
here's the thing, like, you don't have to hate something in order to want something else.
Absolutely. I'm so
Like,
glad you said
and
that. Yeah.
yeah, that's a kind of a mind drama that a lot of people
Yeah.
get into. Like, oh, I don't really hate it. I think I should stay. And it's like, no, no, like if that's true and you love it and you want to stay, my goodness, please do. We certainly need OBGYNs and pediatricians and every other, facet of medicine and good people in those jobs, right? But if it's something that you're like, this is another dream that I want to have for myself, like knowing that it doesn't matter how much student loans you still have, like I still get a bill from Navient for my med school
Right.
loans every month
Right.
and
Yeah.
I'm still paying it off and it's not a problem. Like having that education that being a pediatrician gave me certainly has informed my ability to be a rock star coach, like for sure.
Absolutely. And I also, like, another question that I ask myself when I'm trying to decide, am I letting doubt lead me in this decision making,
Mm.
or am I letting kind of my inner knowing and my intuition? A question that I
Mhm.
really like to ask myself is, what will I be most grateful for? What
Mm.
decision right now, like it's like talking about your future self. Like if I could just
Mhm.
flash forward, what decision would I be so grateful to myself for having made? Even if
Yeah.
it's a hard, like some of those uncertain moments when you're like picking the harder option, I'm
Mhm.
so grateful. I say this all the time. I'm so grateful to that part, like that person in
Mhm.
2018, right? That
Mhm.
chose to pick something that there was kind of some uncertainty. I'm so grateful to her because
Mhm.
she changed, not just changed, like, not that we're just changing our life. Now we are changing our family, we're changing our communities. And it, like, the impact of that to me is just huge, which is amazing.
Mhm. Yeah, I came to the realization recently. I mean, luckily in pediatrics, there weren't many, actual I can count probably on one hand the number of lives that I actually saved by being a pediatrician. I
Right.
mean, you could argue that there were way more than that, but
Right.
like the ones that I can like very quickly recall, like it was
Yeah.
a life or death situation. And not to say that in coaching, like if you are thinking life and death, like coaching is not the solution,
Yeah,
therapy is, right?
absolutely.
But when I think about the ripple effect of the work of working with a mom as her coach in comparison to fixing problems on a day-to-day basis as a pediatrician of her child, like the
Right.
ripple effect of being a coach, I think is so much greater
Yeah.
than the ripples that I was creating as a pediatrician. And I mean, obviously, like I wasn't a trauma surgeon, I wasn't an
Mhm.
ICU physician, that type of thing. I wasn't an OBGYN where I had two lives on my hands, when I'm taking care of my patients. But like, I just like to think of the ripple effect that I will never know.
That's
And
right.
it's so
Yeah.
beautiful to think. And, obviously, if my parents that whose kids their pediatrician, they're going to be pissed at me for saying this, like, but because they're going to be like, no, you don't understand. Like, you saved our
Yeah.
family. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. I
I'm
accept
going to
that
say
I
that I was
did.
about to interrupt you, but I was like, let me just let you finish your sentence because I can tell you whenever I have been concerned about my child, like they're super
Hmm.
sick or there's a behavioral issue or anything like that, and I have gone to my pediatrician, just like as a patient,
Hmm.
I'm just going to tell you, a patient's parent.
Yeah.
I feel like there are certain pediatricians, and you absolutely, I mean, you have that quality, as we all know, just hearing you. I felt so taken care of by the
Mm.
pediatrician, even though the pediatrician is
Hmm.
caring for my child.
Yeah.
But
Oh, yeah.
in some ways we know that our children, they're not extensions of us, but like, I mean, a little bit. Like, I just love
Yeah.
them so much that when
Hmm.
my child is being taken care of by my pediatrician, I really do feel taken care of too.
Yeah, that's
You
true.
know?
Okay. I'll give it to you.
I
I'll give it
mean,
to
come
you.
on, let's toot your I mean, I'm like tearing up because I'm literally thinking about those times where I was really concerned and I would go in and
Hmm.
I think all anyone wants, and this is true not just in medicine but even in coaching,
Yeah.
all anyone wants is to know that their problem can be solved,
Hmm.
right? Like as a patient or as a client that comes to work with either of us, they
Yeah.
want to know, can you help me solve my problem? And the
Mhm.
moment that I find someone like a pediatrician or a
Mhm.
coach that's like,
Mm.
listen,
Yeah,
I've
I
got
got
you taken
you.
care of. You don't have to worry.
Mhm.
I'm telling you, it's the warmest hug that I'm not able
Mhm.
to give myself. I mean, I've tried to give myself these warm hugs. It just doesn't happen as well as it does with someone that really does have you taken care of. So I have to give that to you. Like, you're not just taking care of just the kid. You never were.
Okay, okay. I got you.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean,
Okay.
honestly, that was my favorite part of my job was to, be able to tell people like, this is going to be okay. I know you're worried about it, but it's going to be okay.
That's
And of
right.
course, like some of them I said that way, and some of them I said, you can calm the fuck down about this. Like,
That's right. And it's
okay.
interesting because we have to do that as coaches too, right? Which we'll talk
Hmm.
about in just a second. But there's, I think, as a coach, we want to empower our
Hmm.
clients. And so that's why we want to
Hmm.
call the crap. When we see the crap, you're going to be called out on it. But from a place of such love and
Yeah.
like sometimes I think, and Melissa, I would love to hear your thoughts on this. Sometimes I feel like the reason that I still work with a coach, and I think the reason that you still work with a coach is because sometimes our coaches see in us what we're not able to see. Like we might know, as you're saying, like you're tooting your own horn. We know we're awesome women.
Yeah.
We know we're
Yeah.
like ninjas. And yet at the same time, I know for myself, I will sometimes think of myself with the lowest common denominator. Like, okay,
Hmm.
awesome OBGYN, awesome mom, awesome coach. But like, this one area of my life that I'm not so great at, like somehow my brain will trickle down to the
Oh,
lowest common
yeah.
denominator thoughts about
Yeah.
myself. And I'm like, oh, look
Mhm.
at you, like, screwing it up in all these other areas. And I think that our coach calls us out on the crap when that's coming up. I'm
Mhm.
curious what you think
Yeah.
about that.
Oh, gosh, yeah. I will always,
Yeah.
always have a coach
Yeah.
because I think it's so easy to see when other people are getting coached,
That's
like,
right.
oh, like, I don't believe this about this person at all. Like when I hear other people trying to argue for their limitations, I'm like,
Hmm.
don't even try that with me. Like,
That's right.
I already know that you're a badass. Like,
Yeah.
let's jump from that starting point. Like, you're a badass. Like, let's go from there.
Yeah.
But yes, of course, for me,
Yeah.
every Monday at 4 p.m., I'm like,
Right. Right.
and not seeing it.
Yeah.
And just having my coach be able to call me out on it, like you said, with
Yeah.
so much love and like, oh, honey, like you're just
Yeah.
doing that thing again. Like
Yeah.
that's not necessary. Like, remember, we
Yeah.
decided like it's not
Right.
necessary. You can stop now,
Right.
and
Yeah.
yeah, just with so much love. And like, I think, of course, like we cannot know what we do not know, right? Which I think is what a lot
Mhm.
of coaching is about, like
That's
getting
right.
to what is not exactly conscious thought about ourselves.
Right.
And, it may just be a couple little words or a little facial grimace that you make, or a little eye
Right.
roll, or a little like
Right.
slumping of the shoulders that your coach will see and be like, what's that about?
Right. Yeah.
That you don't even notice in yourself, but
Right.
like
And you would
just
never
being
have thought to question. You would never have
right.
thought to, I mean, the number of times, and we'll talk about this next, but the number of times that like something small like that comes up and the person on their own will have just brushed over it or not noticed it as something that is really a subconscious driver.
Yeah,
Talk about like
significant.
getting, it's a significant driver pushing you down a fork in the road that's going to
Mhm.
get you to a dead end. I think that
Mhm.
having a coach notice and pick up on those small subtleties that we're brushing
Yeah.
over, because I'm like, oh no,
Mhm.
I'm just keeping it real. Every single time, because we've talked about this offline with myself. Like, I'm like, I'm just keeping it real. I'm just being practical. I'm
Mhm.
like, this is terrible. And I'm just sharing for everybody listening a little bit about me. I think I'm being very practical when I am believing my own limiting beliefs.
Mm.
I've told myself, oh, this is just like, I'm just keeping it real. I'm just looking at
Mhm.
the data. I'm just being
Mhm.
practical. And I've not, until I would say probably 2022, really realized how that was me arguing for my limiting beliefs, which is what
Mhm.
you're talking
Mhm.
about, and
Yeah.
discovering that's everything.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You think it's keeping you safe,
That's right.
but it's actually holding you back from your greatness.
Oh, yeah, which is so good. And I feel like that's where you and I kind of first met. So we didn't meet back in 2018. You and I
Nope.
met in a business mastermind. I think what, like has it been 2 years? 2 years
Yeah, I
ago
mean,
ish,
yeah,
a
it
year and a half, two
depends when you
years.
started. Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
we both started in this business mastermind and I basically fell in love with you like right away. And I
Same.
was like, every single physician that has become a coach, I mean, there's a special kinship, I think,
Mhm.
for that. But just even apart from that, I just have always thought you're so amazing. So I remember when we met, you said something along those lines. I must have been saying something about a limiting belief about myself. And you were like, what are you even doing? You just called me
Mm.
out. Like, what are you even saying? Are you hearing yourself? And I was like, okay, I need to be
Mhm.
her friend. We have to
Mhm.
become besties right away. But can you so tell us a little bit about like how we met, you and I, and then how you decided, because this was the time that I was transitioning from one-on-one coaching into a
Mhm.
small intimate group, the Unstoppable group. You decided to join. So tell us a
Yeah.
little bit about how we met and then what was it that made you decide to join?
So yeah, we met at the business mastermind, and then we spent a lot of time together. I guess it was like a year ago, right?
Yeah.
Almost.
And Kentucky.
Yeah, in
That's right.
Kentucky. And I just, you are such a like soft, loving, even the way you speak, your mannerisms, like it draws people in. And I think I was drawn in by the Priyanka spell. And as I was hearing you talk about how much love and care and really just like joy you had coaching your people, I was like, I want to be part of that group. Like I want to feel that love of and be kind of enveloped by Priyanka. And I knew that the people in the group that you were going to attract were going to be amazing too. And of course they were. Shout out to
Mhm.
all of my unstoppable folks.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
um, so I knew that that was available to me, and I was like, I want it. So I think I kind of shocked you by signing up for a consult.
Well, yeah, because for anyone listening, like you and I were friends first, right? We were
Yeah.
friends, we were peer coaches. You called me out on all my crap. Like, and then I think at one point you were like, so I'm going to be signing up for a consult and like, how do I do that? And
Mhm.
I think it's not that I was shocked. I think for me, we were probably in the moment where I was really bringing my very first group together. This was
Mhm.
a year ago. And I remember thinking, and I was telling you about what I was bringing into the group and all of
Mhm.
the elements that I wanted and the features that I wanted. And I was thinking about my amazing working moms and what I
Mhm.
wanted for them. And
Mhm.
I think that there might have been a moment for you where you might have felt like, I want that for me too. Because you
Yeah. Oh,
fit the
yeah.
bill, right? That kind of fit
Mhm.
what you wanted to.
Absolutely. Yeah. And, you know, what honestly, just seeing the passion that you were putting into it, I was like, this is going to be amazing. Like, all I need to do is show up and be open and be coachable. And, of course, I did that for your group too. And, looking back, I was looking at it. I was like, I think over the time that we worked together, I released like 12 pounds from my body, which amazing, like to do that as a 49-year-old woman. Um, you know, not everybody does that, right? So I'm going to toot my own horn that I did that. But I think the bigger piece that I came to after working with you and the other unstoppable moms in our group was just truly, truly for the first time in 49 years, like loving every part of my body, no
Mm,
matter what the number was on the scale. And
yeah.
kind of being able to hold that two thoughts can be true. Like I can love everything about my body and I can still want to release more weight.
Yes.
Like having the ability to hold that in a group container and
Mhm.
have the other women in the group see me and be cheering for me and and me seeing their amazingness and to be frank, me not wanting to like jump in and coach them with you and be
Right.
like, Priyanka, you missed that one little shrug.
Yeah.
Like, did you see
Yeah.
that?
Right.
And
Right.
so I had to like lower my hand a bunch of times, like, no, Melissa, this is not your group. Like, you're
Yeah.
part of the group, right?
Yeah. Yeah. What do you think? Like,
So
because what we're talking about, and I think this is so, um, this is not just you. I think this is for so many women. It's like we're
mhm.
very either or, like
Mhm.
either, I have to lose the weight, or I can just love my body the way I am. And both are
Mhm.
fine on their
Mhm.
own. We can
Yeah.
choose that.
Yeah.
But I think what you're talking about is you were able to create kind of an and situation.
Yeah,
Like
both
I can
and.
love my body now. And also like, I also want to lose weight because, and you just
Mhm.
decide your reason. What do you
Mhm.
think it was about being in the group that helped you go from maybe either oring to having both be true for you?
Um, I mean, let's toot your horn for a bit. Like you provided such an awesome framework. You gave us so many tools to choose from. Um, and I think like some people would be intimidated by the amount of tools that are available to them. But for me, I was just like, no, like I can pick a couple of these and be successful. I don't have to, be the valedictorian of the Unstoppable Mom Group. Like, I
You're not
don't
the
have
only
to
one that
do
has said that.
everything.
I know. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
Right. I can pick
Yeah.
just a couple of these things and work on these things. And um, I think it was just like the evaluations that you had us do every month, like that had me seeing like over and over, like, oh, I'm making so much progress. Like it's not just about the weight, it's about the way that I'm talking to myself, it's the way that I'm treating myself. Um, so I think that helped me see the possibility of holding both.
Right. Yeah, that's so good. And I remember Adrian, I think Adrian was the one that coined the word badassery for
Mm-hmm.
the group, right? So for the women in this group, Adrian, who's one of our clients, she's been on the podcast already, but she coined the word badassery. And she was saying
Mm-hmm.
this, she said it in passing. I don't think she meant for it to stick, but it stuck in my mind. And I think it stuck with the women in this group that the women in this group are badasses. Like
Mm-hmm.
truly, when you think about being a working mom, you're
Mm-hmm.
working, it's like you're working two very full jobs.
Yeah.
And I think that sometimes we don't see ourselves as that. As working moms, I think what ends up happening as the lens before you come into this group is you kind of feel, okay, I'm working and I'm a mom, but I'm kind of feeling short on both ends. And
Mhm.
speaking of like self-limiting beliefs, instead of us
Mm.
seeing that we are these badasses that are doing two full jobs, we're like, look at me lacking here and look at me lacking here.
Mhm.
And I'm just
Mhm.
lacking. I'm curious when you think about even that lens that the women in this group are badasses and you already know that you're a badass. What do you think it was when you think about being in a room like that? Like
Mhm.
especially being in an intimate room like that with other high achieving working moms.
Mm.
What do you think is the value of being in a room like that, especially for weight loss?
Yeah, I mean, I think seeing the power that
Mhm.
each woman had individually,
Yeah.
and then seeing the power of the collective. Like, one
Yeah.
of my values and things that I really believe is that a rising tide lifts all boats. So, you know,
Yes.
we can see and celebrate another person's success without making it mean, oh, I should have, like, she's lost 15 pounds. Like, I've only lost 12. Like, no, like, we're all badasses. Like, we're all releasing something. It may be weight, it may be old beliefs that we had about ourselves, it may
That's
be
right.
our need to, like, people please at work. Like, we're all releasing something.
Right.
Um and I think just having, like, knowing that I had my own back and that you had my back and that the other women in the group had my back and that I could be the
Mm.
powerful, like, example of what's possible for them.
Right.
Like, I can remember one of the women who we know and love, like, just could not see how a way out of, like, working as many hours as she was.
Right.
And I'm just like, look at me. Like, I totally
Yeah.
quit my job as a
Yeah.
pediatrician and I'm
Yeah.
intentionally choosing, like, I'm working these days and not the others. Like, we
Yeah.
don't have to be in these, what I call, like, golden handcuffs where, like,
Right.
we tell ourselves that we're stuck because we have to earn so much money or whatever it
Yeah.
is. But I think just, like, me being able to be an example for the other women and then seeing
Yeah.
how they could also be an example for me,
Right.
like, oh, so badass. Like, one of the women
So
had
good.
almost lost all of her weight and
Yep.
was in the group just to lose the last few pounds and that type of
Mhm.
thing. And I was like, man, she's a badass. She's gotten rid of all the weight she wants to get rid of, and she's still here to
Right.
lose those last few. Like, oh, such
Yeah.
a badass. Like, just so many
Yeah.
examples just of
Yeah.
that.
I think, and tell me whether this feels true for you, but this is how I have felt. And this was one of the like the pieces of love that I thought about when I was even considering creating the Unstoppable group was kind of touching to what you said at the very beginning about living in probability versus
Mhm.
possibility.
Mhm.
And having this intimate group where you start to see possibility because
Mhm.
either someone has already achieved a goal and you're like, oh, that's possible for me.
Mhm.
Or if somebody hasn't achieved a goal and you see them getting coached and you see the
Mhm.
possibility for them. Do you know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
Like those moments where you can see, and I think this happens when you are watching somebody else get coached. And we know this because we're coaches,
Yeah.
there's something very powerful about you getting coached yourself. And
Yes.
also when you see somebody else getting coached and like the gap between where they are and the possibility that they have, I think
Mhm.
that that too speaks to what my goal was in creating this group. What would you
Yeah.
say to
Oh,
that?
yeah, for sure. Because it's very hard to see and impossible to see
Yeah,
our own subconscious thoughts,
that's
but
right.
we can very easily see them in other people. Like, oh,
Yeah,
she's just thinking that in order to be a good blank, she has to blank, right? It's like,
right.
oh, what if
Right.
that wasn't true? And then the
Right.
other thing that I would say is, like, in a group coaching setting, like, the one that you set up for sure, like, there was no place for, like, compare and despair.
Yeah,
It was all, oh, if you see what she has and you want what she has, like, you don't need to be jealous about it. You can just be inspired by that person
exactly.
and be like, oh, if she can do it, I can do it too.
Yeah,
Like, there's nothing that standing in the way except
that's
my
right.
own limiting beliefs, which
That's
here I
right.
am showing up every Wednesday for this call.
Yeah.
so that we can work on my limiting beliefs. Like,
Absolutely. And you know what, Melissa, I'm curious for you because I have found, especially whenever I've coached a client on jealousy, it's not uncommon. I mean,
yeah,
it's not uncommon. Like, can we just say, and let's not judge ourselves for it. Like,
right.
we compare and despair because that's what humans do, and we feel jealous because that's what humans do.
Yeah.
But also, like, what I'm always more interested in when I notice that that is a limiting belief is holding somebody back in their own weight loss work is
Hmm.
how that thread is influencing other parts of their life.
Oh, yeah.
Forget weight loss. If we just coached on jealousy and compare and despair as a mom in your work life, with your husband or wife, with your
Hmm.
boss, like if you look at the thread
Hmm.
and then you look at the impact of that,
Yeah.
I love to coach on jealousy because it knocks all those dominoes down.
Yeah. It's so powerful. Yeah.
Right?
Because really, jealousy is just a wish in disguise.
Yes. Oh, I love
Like,
that. Yeah.
it's just a wish for what I want for myself.
That's all. Yeah.
And, and then the thing that I love about coaching is kind of a be careful what you wish for scenario,
Right.
right? Like, do you
Right.
really want what that person has? Do you really
Right.
want to do the work that he or she has done to get it? And
Yeah.
like, okay, like, let's examine that and see.
Yeah.
Cause sometimes, and I found like some of the things I'm like, oh, like, I don't really want that for myself. Like,
Right.
it's
Right.
not something that I'm gonna pine over, and I can just,
Yeah.
like, let that go with love, and like you
Hmm.
said, not make myself feel bad for having had jealousy over it because it is a human emotion, and we're supposed to feel all of
Totally.
them.
And like, what if we
And
got to become our own compass? I think that women,
mhm,
especially, we are using external, like
mhm.
inputs, like our friends and our family and our colleagues and like fellow physicians or like in your workplace or other moms that are losing weight. I remember I used to do
Yeah,
this all the time. I'm like, look at that. Like, she's just like lost the weight so easily. And like, she gets to eat whatever she wants. Like that comparing to, like, I would have that rather than what we do in this group is how do you become your own compass, your own, like you are
mhm,
your own barometer. You get to
mhm,
decide and at the
mm,
same time learn from the wisdom of the women in this room. And
mhm.
I'm just
Yeah,
curious, like the last question that I have kind of on this topic is I also thought about creating this group as the best mix of being in an intimate room where you learn from other people and are inspired by other people and are supported by them, but at the
mhm,
same time where you can get really customized and personal support too, like in live coaching, but also in the 24/7 coaching cafe.
mhm.
What would you
Yeah.
say to that? Like in terms of the balance between, supporting and being inspired by the group, but also getting customized attention.
Yeah. I mean, I would say there was never a time where I needed coaching that I did not get coaching. Like,
Yeah.
I raised my hand. You were so gracious, and if you had extra time, you were always like, I have more time. Like, who else needs help, and who else wants
Yeah.
to examine their thoughts and that type of thing. And then I think the ability to have the 24/7 written coaching, which I love. I think it's so powerful to participate in written coaching rather, because it gives me a chance to, because sometimes when you're in the hot seat to say,
Hmm.
so to speak, when
Right.
you're getting coaching, it's sometimes hard to access some of your deeper thoughts and that type of thing. And
Right.
I think with the written coaching, it gave me a chance to like see what I had written, see what you had responded, digest a bit, and then come up with a response instead of having to come up with it on the spot. I also
Yeah.
love live coaching. Like, let's
Right.
be honest, like so many huge
Yeah.
breakthroughs, but I love the mix of both that you provide to the
Yeah.
group. And I love the fact that, like, if there was written coaching that I needed that I wanted to keep private between you and me, I could give that to you in a message.
Hmm.
And I loved reading other people's written coaching because, again,
Yeah.
you can see their limiting beliefs so much easier and be like, oh, yes, of course. Like, if
Yeah.
I was in this situation, what would I do? What would I be thinking and feeling and that type of thing?
Yeah.
So,
And I think it's so interesting because a few times I've noticed what's happened is when, especially when somebody participates in written coaching and they get the hang of like, it's almost like a texting conversation, right? Back and forth between
yeah.
you and me, but in a group. I think
Hmm.
what has happened a few times is somebody will write out what they wanted coaching on. And then at the end, they're like, I think I just kind of coached myself because they start to see their thoughts as they write them
Yeah.
down. And I
Yeah.
totally am such a fan of the combination of live
Mhm.
like life coaching on Zoom, but then also
Mhm.
having this because I think it's so true. I sometimes don't see it myself because in the moment I'm like, I don't know what do I think about this? But when I'm writing, all of a
Mhm.
sudden like things start to come out that I didn't know
So
were
powerful.
there. And that's so powerful. And I just want to speak kind of to your horn, which is I think that you were such a powerful influence in this group.
Mm.
And I wanted to speak to that because I think that sometimes we can show up and as a coach, you could have come in this group and been like, I know all the coaching and I know like my thoughts create my results. You totally could have. And
Mhm.
I want to say, I want to speak to your coachability and why I think you got what you got out of this room is because of that. And I think
Mhm.
that, just to pivot a little bit on how you and I mean, this speaks to you coaching women. Like,
Mhm.
speak a little bit about how it felt for you being a coach, but also now what you do, which is coaching women with brains. I love that, by the
Yeah.
way. Coaching
Thank
women
you,
with
thank
brains,
you.
and like how it felt for you to be the client, and then now, like now we're here sitting, two coaches talking. Like, tell me a little bit about
Yeah.
that for you.
Yeah, I mean, I think that I definitely came into the group knowing that I didn't know everything. And or else why would I have ever like paid to be in the group? Like if I knew it
Right,
all and I had been able to solve it all on my own, of course I would have done it already, right? Which
right.
is why I think we invest in coaching,
Mhm.
right? So
That's
that
right.
we can figure out what it is that we don't know. Um, and just having somebody else like looking at our brain and um, trying to pull out our limiting beliefs and see how they're holding us back. So
Yeah,
I
and
think,
even if you think I think that's
mm,
another piece, like, sometimes you think because, like, I
yeah.
know the information.
Mhm.
How common is that? Like, I know the information and, like, I should be
Mhm.
applying it, but, like, I am
Oh, yeah,
not,
on an
right?
intellectual level, I know
That's right.
this,
Right.
but, like, when it comes to Tuesday at 4 p.m., like,
Yeah.
I'm still headed to the pantry when I'm not
Right.
hungry, like, what's
Exactly.
happening?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I mean, I think that that really is the beauty of coaching, like, to know that you are a badass. Like, let's start
Mhm.
from that starting off point, that
Yeah.
we all have things that we still need to learn about ourselves, that none of us is going to like come out of some tunnel and be like, I'm done, like I'm finished,
Right.
I'm enlightened, I'm, you know,
Right.
everything's perfect. Like that's not the goal anymore. It's
Right.
like being willing to like be in the tunnel or be in the forest or whatever and, feel all the feelings that are necessary to get the results that we actually want in our life, right? So, I don't know if I answered your question, did I?
Yeah, well,
Kind
I
of,
I
sort
think
of.
that kind of just transitions to, like, I really want people that are listening to know what you're doing, which is
Yeah.
I think it is so important, and I always feel so lit up sharing anyone that is coaching women because I think women
Mhm.
deserve to have coaches. I really think women
Mhm.
just deserve to have coaches, and you're a powerful example of that. So, tell
Yeah.
us about what you're doing. Tell us about your
Mhm.
podcast, your favorite your favorite you. Tell us
Yeah.
everything about what you're doing and how people can find you.
Yeah, so I am coaching women one-on-one. Um, we work together for 6 months at a time, and it really is just I love everything about my job. Like, I every day I'm like, I get to coach so and so, and I get to coach her, and like, it's Sarah Day, like, yay! Like,
Right.
I just love everything about it. And I think that that shines through in what I'm doing and the people that I am attracting to work with me. My goal is to help women become their favorite version of themselves. And
Mm,
the way that I try to do that is trying to teach them to treat themselves as their own best friend. So,
right.
like looking at life through that lens, like if I was talking to my best friend right now and she was saying these things that I'm saying to myself in this moment, like what would I say to her? How is that different from what I'm actually saying to myself right now? And what's in the way? Like what's getting in between, me actually talking to myself as if I am my best friend and me like putting myself down or poo-pooing or talking myself out of something that I'm dreaming of. right?
Yeah.
So, so yeah, I've been coaching now. It's been 2.5 years and I absolutely love it. I started the podcast on October 4th, which was my half birthday. So I was halfway between 49 and 50. And um, it has just been such a great joy. Like I had the story that I wasn't creative.
Oh,
And
Melissa.
yeah, I know. I know. I got so
Yeah.
much coaching on it. And if
Yeah.
Maggie's listening to this, she's
Yeah.
going to be like, yeah, girl.
Yeah.
Um, but, and I thought like I didn't have a lot enough to say in order to make a podcast. But it just goes to show like what a story it is, because now when
Yeah.
I'm going to record my podcast, I'm like, I have so much to say. Like I have to pare it
Yeah.
down. And like, it's
Right.
just like the total opposite story. Like, how can both of those things be true? Like I have nothing to say and I have too much to say. Like, no,
Right.
like what if I have just right
Like
amount of things to
Goldilocks.
say? Exactly.
I love Goldilocksing things, but I think what you're saying, and even before we got on this call, I was even just thinking about how I go into the coaches that I follow, the podcast that I follow, like sometimes
Mhm.
just hearing that person's perspective, somebody who you
Mhm.
trust and respect, and
Mhm.
they could be saying something that was 60 seconds long, but when
Right.
you trust and respect a specific human, and they're
Mhm.
not better or worse than you, they're just another human, but you trust and
Right.
respect them, anything and everything they say is valuable. And
Right.
to me, that has been so liberating, just in me
Mhm.
showing up as my best self, as my favorite version
Mhm.
of me, and
Mhm.
how I want to kind of look at all the humans that I'm interacting with. Like that's just the best filter.
Yeah,
It's
absolutely.
so good.
I think that one of the things I had to work on, and um I definitely have kind of blown past it, is like there is no hierarchy. Like
Yes.
there's not one person better than the other. Like, what if we're all just humans on the planet? We're all traumatized. We're all just, trying to be an example of what's possible to other people. And knowing that my job is to say things in my own way with
Yeah.
my own stories and jokes and silliness and swearing that I do a lot of, um, and it's going to be for some people and they're going to be my people and they're going to listen and
Yeah.
they're going to maybe become clients and that type of thing. And it's not going to be for other people. And that's
Yeah.
okay. Like I don't have to
Yeah.
make myself beige in order
Mm-hmm.
to be palatable, for
Because,
other
but then like
people.
the world that you decided, like you decided to stay on Earth and not go into space. And I think that Earth gets to benefit from your unique flavor of you. Right. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that we all can have that. I just want
Mm-hmm.
anyone listening to this, I want everyone listening to this to know that we are one in billions, each of us.
Mm-hmm.
And I
Yeah.
think we are so conditioned to try to fit into the norm and fit in with everyone. And this is what you're talking about, is like your favorite you, like discovering that and befriending that is like letting your unique self
Mm-hmm.
really be present. Like the earth
Mm-hmm.
wants it, the people want it. I
Yeah.
just think it's so good.
And yeah, I mean, when you become your favorite version of you, you start to attract the people that are meant for
Yeah.
you.
Oh yeah,
And
so
it's
good.
like the people that aren't meant for you, it's like it's okay to let them go. I have all
Yeah.
these people that are actually meant for me. And I think the kind of mind fuck about it is like once you become your favorite you aren't afraid of being alone, because when you're
Mhm.
alone, you're not lonely. You're in
That's
like
right.
solitude, which I love solitude. Like
Yeah.
it's one of my favorite things, right?
It's like you're
Um,
not bored because you're with yourself.
yeah.
Just so
Yeah,
good.
so good.
Oh my
Yeah,
God. I feel like we could
so
like
lovely.
have part 2 and part 3, which maybe we will, Melissa, like have you back on. We're gonna keep talking. But
Yeah.
tell anyone listening, I just thank you so much for coming on and
Yeah, thank
sharing
you
your
for having
experience
me.
with the group and what you're doing. How can somebody listening to this find you? What's the simplest way that they can get in touch with you?
Yeah, I mean, certainly on Facebook, Melissa Parsons Coaching. On Instagram, I'm Coach Melissa Parsons MD. The podcast you can get on any podcast platform, your favorite you, or search Melissa Parsons. It comes right up. And I have a website, melissaparsonscoaching.com. So lots
Guys,
of
you have
different
to go find
ways.
her. Go find her because everything that it's like, this is such good work. I think anyone listening to this go find Melissa. I hope you guys all enjoyed this episode. And thank you so much. This has been, I just love catching up with you so much.
I
And
love you too,
it's been
Priyanka. You
so
can't
good.
stop me.
Never. Okay, guys. Bye.